We live. Let's go. We on the time. We moving on time. Let's set up real quick. Hope your day went well. Hope your weekend went well. Hope your weekend and day went well. Another day talking about higher education. Your boy got some stuff to read for school too. Probably do a little reading. So the goal, once again, is an hour and 30. If it's shorter, yes, we are live. If it's shorter, even better. So let's see. Let's set up. Yes, indeed. We are live. Yes, indeed. What am I? Is video tools, video. Is that set up? There we go. As I set that. YouTube. There you go. Boom. Perfect. Disclaimer. The videos presented here are for informational purposes only, and therefore, if you are to choose to attend the institution, please do your own research and consult with a specialist at the institution you are interested in. I am not a financial aid specialist, academic advisor, or representing any institution. Speaking on behalf of Creator, Henry is only speaking from his experience. So, with that being said, and disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor as well. So, guys, I came across a video. Doc Rivers. If anybody who do not know what, bless you. If anybody who do not know, if you do not know who Doc Rivers is a NBA head coach, former player, and I feel like this is needed. A lot of people like to play basketball. They think basketball is life. They think, oh, I could just play ball and don't need an education. So many things wrong with that, right? And so, as we know, the value of education is not important for some reason today. I don't know why. I can see why if you don't really care or feel like you need it, but education is in everything. Education is in sports. Because I'll explain more of that afterwards, but it's in sports. It's in, of course, your career field, whatever career field you do. It's in raising children, family. It's in everything you do, honestly. Education is everything. So I'm going to play this video for you. I think it's very interesting. It's only going to be like the certain part. I'll skip to that certain part that he started ranting about it. So I'm going to play it. Is everything turned up first and foremost? It's gonna be really loud, which is good. I feel like it's everything.
That's why. So
yeah, it's pretty loud. Yeah.
Big in the city. That's why blacks dominate the sport, because that's what we start out at playing. You can't be a pro basketball player nowadays if you don't go to school. It's that simple. If you don't do the books, you don't play on the court. It's that simple, but it's also really tough, because it's tough for a guy to study when his parents never went to school, or when he just has one parent and she's working all the time and the father's not around. See, it's not easy. It sounds so easy, but it really isn't that easy. When you come from a background with 10 brothers and sisters and none of them went to school, all of them dropped out from high school, but you've been working on your game. You know you should study, but you don't know how to study. You need work. You need some help on this math problem, but who can help you? They say, well, tell your parents to tell them to study. Well, if your parents never went to high school, how do they know how to study? How can your parents tell you to do your homework if they never did their homework? They probably don't know you have homework. And so it's not that easy. I think basketball has ruined a lot of people's lives. Especially in my neighborhood, basketball is so important that you become a star in your neighborhood when you're in high school and when you're in grade school. And you really haven't accomplished a thing. I think the kids' biggest downfall right now is that they settle for short-term success instead of looking at the whole picture. Basketball to me is far more than a game. It's.
All right, that's it. That's it. I caught that little clip of it. And it was very insightful. Um, Hold on, guys. I'm writing down some notes. All right. So, guys, wow, what a start. So, that was a young version of Doc Rivers. I believe he was in his 20s, is when he currently was on the Atlanta Hawks. The person, shout out to Media Burn Archive, YouTube channel. So, it was saying interviews with Doc River from the 1992 documentary. So, it's from a 1992 documentary of More Than a Game, in which Rivers talks about growing up in basketball in outdoor courts in Chicago. But the whole thing about it, it was in 1992. So if you do Doc Rivers' age of 1992 to now, you can get the age range that he was in. But I did read the comments because I didn't go Google his age, but I believe he was in his 20s. So to be in his 20s talking about that is magnificent. It shows you the value of education, first and foremost, because everybody thinks this is normal when you're in your 20s and you're talking normal. People think this is abnormal. When other people see a young person talking like this in their 20s, they're very, I'm gonna be honest with you, some people might be intimidated at first, but very shocked and oh my goodness at the same time, because you're speaking so very well intelligent to be so young. But people don't understand that the way that you become so intelligent or speak intelligent or think so differently at a young age is by picking up a book or being around older people early. But for sure, I would say reading books. Now, people think reading books takes time to kick in, but when you're reading the book, you're digesting information that's going to sit in your brain, your cranium, overnight. It sounds crazy, but I will read something that hurts my head one day, and then by the next day, if I come back to it and keep reading, it's going to make sense. Or it's going to be a little less gibberish, more clear. And I don't understand that. That's something in the brain that my psychology or I think it's called therology. Is that therology, Al? Therology, right? Al. I don't know if you hear me. I'm gonna look it up. It's called therology, I believe. Let me see. Therology, if I say that right. Let me see. Wait. Neurology. I don't know why I said therology. Neurology, yes. Neurology is the medical specialty focused on the diagnosis and treatment of disorders of the nervous system, which includes the brain, spinal cord, and nerves. A doctor who specializes in this field is called neurologist and treats a wide range of conditions such as strokes, epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, and various headaches. But don't they study the brain? Neurologists manage these complex conditions using medication therapies and other approaches. I feel like they study the brain when they're in school. Let me look that up. Yes, the study of the brain is called, so they study the brain. Okay, I believe they study the brain. They can give me another definition of it. So, they study the brain. And so I can obviously I'm not that, but you get the gist. Like it resonates and sits in your brain better. He said you can't become a pro ball player if you don't go to school. Although Doc Rivers, the young Doc Rivers, I'm pretty sure he has that same mindset now. But he said you can't become a pro ball player if you don't go to school. Now a lot of people won't like that because a lot of people say you don't need to go to college to become a great basketball player. And then people might point out examples like one of the best players known today. They're older and they keep playing, known as LeBron. So most people might bring up LeBron as a prime example of skipping, and some other players who skipped college to go play ball in the NBA. But these players were very different to where they did have the IQ, the basketball IQ. And so, but the fact that Doc Rivers said that in his 20s, he said that you need to have an education, or you need to go to college essentially to become a basketball pro, says a lot. I started telling people this a little bit, that it's weird to say, but reading or educating yourself in some form or fashion that exercises your brain, advances it, makes you a better ball player in any sport, because it's the psychology for me. You're more confident in what you can do and your ability. But if you have a limited mindset or confidence level about yourself, you're going to be capped at a certain level, which is known as potential. And so if anybody follows sports, for my sports people, and in academics, it goes for everything. If you don't have much potential, your potential is not usually based on your physical abilities. Now, if you're a professional, of course, and you made it, or you're going to make it, or you're striving to make it, it's not because you don't have the physical abilities. There's been plenty of people break barriers because they didn't have physical abilities. But what separates is having that, I feel like personally, having that mindset, which goes back to the beginning, having the education to know where you can go when you put your mind to it. And history in the education world, a lot of people who didn't advance their education back in history from all demographics was mainly because they were not educated. If you are not educated, how can you know how far you can go? And that's why education is very powerful. And so when a young Doc Rivers said that, it makes me think about how much the NBA or I think really NBA so far, or other sports as well. Baseball you don't need to go to college to play baseball, or golf. But it makes me think about basketball in a specific realm, because Doc says in the black community that, this also leads into I'm skipping around a little bit, but he said that basketball ruins a lot of lives in the black community. He said that. He said he's seen a lot of people who was like stars at young ages, and he's seen a lot of people who were stars at young ages who felt like they didn't need to go to school. They didn't need to prepare to they felt like they didn't need to prepare to do nothing but just keep playing ball, and that was gonna be their ticket out. And he said it ruins a lot of lives. And I think about today, basketball ruins a lot of lives now. Really, any sport, when you put your sole purpose into any sport and you don't have any education as a backup plan, or having the education to know, like, to diversify, because Doc Rivers said that, you probably heard him say it, but he said that you need to, they see the short term, they don't see the long term, they don't see the bigger picture. Like, that was key. They see the short term instead of seeing the long term. He said kids only see the short term, and it ruins your life, because you think your ticket out is this, whatever sport you're doing, this sport right here is going to be my ticket out, when that sport is not really. It's going to be a certain people, yeah, it's going to be certain people ticket out, but I refuse to become a victim of that. one of the reasons why I chose not to even do sports after school, because it was just, to me, it was personally gonna be somebody controlling me still. And I, like, you can put in the hard work. This is where I say education comes in. You can put in the hard work to play the sport, but at the end of the day, you have to depend on that coach to hopefully realize your potential. And what if your coach does not have the potential? What if your coach does not have the education to see your potential? That's an interesting perspective. A whole nother rabbit hole, if you ask me. But he also said, Doc Rivers also said, young Doc Rivers said that you should study. He said kids should study, but kids don't know how to study. That hit home. Like, it's a lot of kids probably today with money, not with money. Because when I think of athletes, guys, especially in the Black community, when I think of athletes, they don't get their college degree because mainly they feel they do not need it. And as I said before, I'm a person who, speaking from experience, who had special education, IEP case manager. I need to look up the syllables because you, in different places, IEP might mean something different. IEP meaning, it's an end of it, yeah, I think that's what it's called right there. Should be. Let me see. Make sure I say this right. Individualized education program. Yeah. A written document created for students aged 3 years old to 21 years old with a disability who require specialized instruction and related services. So I had an IEP / being in special education, and I fully, because I had a reading comprehension, I like to remind people, couldn't really read, wasn't on my grade level until I got to college. Really, I wasn't really on it when my senior year. I was getting there, but I wasn't really on it. I was, just enough, making it by. And so, from a person who didn't believe that college was important, I would tell you strongly that you should, not knowing how to study, like, is real. That's a real thing. That's why I said, like, going to college it shifted a big mindset about the power of education, which I feel like is better than money, currency, because when you have an education, you always can make the currency. Hopefully that makes sense. And so you should study. And remember, people who play sports know this. If you need to study, relating to my sports people and academics, if you need to study, you don't know how to study. He said that if you need to work on a math problem, you need to know how to study for it. You don't know how to study for it. Same can go for if you're playing sports. You need to study for a particular way to do the sport, because quarterbacks out there or people that play these sports that require some level of advancement of education, it's not simple. Like, just, you have to know and understand behavior. You have to understand, it might be some moments where you might be like, if I can get it at that angle on this play precisely, not precisely, but at an estimate every time, accounting, like factoring in however your brain works, education is helping. It's helping you when you watch that film. It's helping when you are counting them steps or realizing that maybe I should do this a different way. I don't know. I'm not a professional athlete, but I'm pretty sure some athletes have different thought processes of why they do the things they do. Because everything that we see happens on purpose. It's never an accident that something happens. So you should study, but don't know how to study. Hit home, because there was plenty of times I know I couldn't study because I didn't know how to study. And when I learned how to study, school got a lot easier because I didn't have tutors. So that just stood out right there. And that, what else did Doc say? And Doc just said that, like, to close out, guys, I really suggest, like, I think players in any sport, especially in the Black community, should go back to getting their college degree and then going pro, because it will make them a better ball player. It makes them think differently and how to stay out of trouble differently as well. So a lot of scenarios that I hear going on with ball players, but in any sport. But the main ordeal is that they don't have education. Most don't graduate. And you think about football, college football, for example, that most of those players stay until their junior year and they leave. And I'm not sure. We never hear much. We never hear many studies about the college football players why they leave their junior. Well, we know why they leave their junior year if they go trying to go to the draft, but we never hear any. We never hear a lot. Now it could be a good. It could be a good. What's that word? A good abundance of them going back to get their degree, but we don't hear about it. But I'm strongly feeling that a lot of them leave, and if they don't make the draft, they just go overseas in any sport, go overseas if they can, and they just leave the degree on the table. And some of these players go to very prestige institutions and don't take advantage of the great curriculum or education schoolhouse that they are in. We review a lot of schools, guys, and some of the schools I'm like, oh, I know this school because of basketball. I know this school because of football. I know this school because of this. And a lot of these players don't take advantage of the education that they're getting. And it's like I said, speaking from experience, guys, like when I tell people like my ASVAB score was low, I'm talking about like in the 5s and 8s. My SAT scores, man, I believe my SAT score was like a 910, 930. And then my ACT score was like oh my goodness. I probably didn't even crack double digits, no exaggeration, because I didn't even have a calculator and I didn't even try. So probably didn't even crack double digits on my ACT. But I'm pretty sure if I studied, knowing what I know now, how to study, tools I need, I could do a lot better on the SAT now, of course. But if it was planted in me early to know that and do that, I would have scored better when the time came. And so that's why I feel with players, like if they understood the education, the studying habits, which carries over to what practice habits. If you can practice 3 times a day, you can study 3 times a day if you really want to be that academic person. And so, or work on your schoolwork for hours out of the day so you can be better than your peers when you go into class. Because sometimes in class, guys, you don't need to know, it's just like sports, as I say. When you go to class, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know more than the next person. If the best person in your class only knows, let's just say 3 things, you need to know maybe 6 things. So when you get into a class debate, you could just out talk them pretty much and bring up some facts or some intellectual, reasonable answers that stands out to where the professor, may give you some extra credit. If I went on a rant or a tangent in that. So Doc Rivers talking about the power education needed for any ball player is something I think most people should hear and see. I do strongly believe that players should get their degrees before going to the pros, because as I like to bring up, a player named Jalen Hurts, quarterback for the Eagles, got his bachelor's, got his master's, and now he has a Super Bowl, which is, the Super Bowl is one of the best things you can get in football. It's one of the highest achievements as a team. So, but he has his education. Like you can argue with it. I'm not gonna lie, you can argue with me and say, "Oh, other players got Super Bowls and they all got their degree," but he has a bachelor's and master's, so I feel like he exemplifies, strongly what I believe in. Because, like I said, I was a person that believed in you should get a 2-year. You should just get a certificate and keep it pushing. And then when I learned the power of education, oh my goodness, it opens up your whole it's like another world. Like you just see things a lot different, understand things a lot more, and just understand that, man, education can bring everybody together. So I wanted to talk about that with Doc Rivers, him exemplifying the value of an education and how obviously we got away from that. And does Doc Rivers, what college he went to? Before we even put him on this, he better got his degree. Let's see. Doc Rivers, what school he went to? You don't need a degree to be a head basketball coach. Doc Rivers education. Doc Rivers went to Marquette University. I'm gonna say Doc Rivers college degree. Doc Rivers earned a college degree in political science from Marquette University, completing his coursework after being drafted into the NBA in 1983 and graduating in 1985. Oh wow, let's hold on before we were just about to end lead this. Let's go on Marquette University athletics. So Marquette University athletics. Let's see if they put it in here. So this is his Hall of Fame. He's in the Marquette M Club Hall of Fame. He was a 3-year starter. Okay. What about his education? Are y'all gonna highlight his education? They love to not highlight education. All right, so that didn't give us nothing. But I'm gonna go on here. I don't know how valid and credible this is, but I'm gonna use it. I'm going to use it. So right here, it says Glenn Doc Rivers. This is on Chicagoland Sports Hall of Fame. It says Doc Rivers, a Maywood native, built an extraordinary basketball career. They said Doc was dubbed Dr. J, drafted by the Atlanta Hawks in 1983. They said he played 13 NBA seasons, including stints with the Clippers, Knicks, and Spurs, earning accolades like NBA All-Star in 1988. They said River transitioned to coaching, achieved monumental success as the head coach. Did they mention his education? They said dedicated family man. He raised college athlete children. No, they don't mention him getting his degree. God, this is weird. I don't want to go solo. Let's see if Google go give me a link. Because they AI overview is showing me links. But let's see if, like, that's crazy, right? Trying to find if somebody got their college degree is crazy. That should be like an easy, credible source to find. So this is on Brit Antica. I said it right, Al? Brit Antica? It's like a website. Britannica? Oh, Lord. I don't know. I never said it out loud. So Britannica? Britannica. Okay. So they talk about his playing career right here, but I want to see his education, so I'm going to Control F, education. Wow. No education. Degree. Let's see. They said while attending, he helped the team capture a civil. He helped the U.S. team, education. All right, boom. Okay, this way right here. So Britannica, they say he was drafted and was a second-round choice for the Atlanta Hawks in 1983. They say he completed his degree in political science in 1985. So I guess that is true. They say he completed. You see how they just disregard that he got his degree and kept it pushing. Like, they just really ran over like he got his degree. But he got his degree while he was in the NBA. He finished and got his degree. So, which means I got to get Doc River on here and ask him why did he finish and get his degree. So I wanted to find that. That's very important, man. That's a eye-opener. And it panned out for Doc Rivers because Doc Rivers also ended up being what? A coach. We know him more. I feel like my generation knows him more as a coach than as a player. Of course, he was a pretty good player, and then he turned out to be a great coach. And why? He has the education. He's a very educated person. He's a very educated man, and so that highlights why you should get a college degree. You know, because when you're educated, that's why you fold your arms like this a little bit, like, you know. At least to me, that's why you do it. All right. So shout out to Doc Rivers, man. Definitely gotta get him on. Ask him why he majored in political science. Ask him what made him get his college degree after being drafted. You know, that's a great interview. Coming. It's a great interview. You gotta stop all that laughing. All that laughing. Can you hear? You heard me? I just said stop all that laughing. You kept laughing.
Oh.
I was calling your name over there. You didn't hear me either. That is so bad.
I was listening. I had both of my ears.
Oh, so bad. I was like, okay.
Sorry.
All right, listen up. If you are Hispanic, listen up.
It sounds racist.
Don't. It is not. It's literally in the article. Literally. Chill. For my Hispanic serving institution people out there, it's people, Hispanic serving institution. For my Hispanic serving institutions, listen up. I couldn't fit the whole word in there. But if you are Hispanic, I do feel like you should listen. Some changes are coming. I don't know if these changes are bad, but if you are attending a Hispanic serving institution, more of all, if you are Hispanic, respectfully, that you should listen, because apparently Hispanic serving institutions are being potentially harmed. Potentially. That is the word on the street. They're being potentially harmed, according to the Chronicles of Higher Education. So, as we start, it says the Trump administration pulled the rug out from under Hispanic serving institutions by deciding not to defend the decades-old program in court. So, my people, I explained Hispanic serving institutions before. So, Hispanic serving institution is when your institution has a certain demographic of Hispanics, of course, but when your school demographic is consisted of a certain quota of Hispanic minorities, essentially. And so, when you have a certain quota of, we'll just say Hispanic in this situation, you have a certain percentage of Hispanic, your school could be clarified, even though it can be founded as a predominantly white institution. When it has a certain demographic of more of a certain demographic, like it has to meet a certain demographic. So it can't, like, just because, like, let's just say your school population is like 10% A, 20% B, and then 30% C. Just because you got 30% C doesn't qualify it to be that specific demographic of an institution. It has to meet the quota pertaining to the U.S. Department of Education. And so Hispanic serving institutions were created, of course, for Hispanic people specifically. So what that means is when a school takes on that majority demographic of Hispanic serving institutions, they are required to, most likely required, because they're going to get more funds, more money to help out Hispanic students in this case. And so that means like more of the cultural aspects, more like campus amenities are more tailored to Hispanic students. Everything is more Hispanic culture. It should be, at least. This is for predominantly Black institutions. This is for Asian Pacific and Islander. No, Asian and Pacific Islander institutions as well. So all demographics, every demographic has their own like, hey, you get this money, you do this. So this is regular practice, guys. So, but many don't know that, and it helps with your school choice too. So if you are someone who feels that, hey, I don't see enough of me at a school, and you want to go to a different school, this is how you find out. You can use, of course, the tools we have in the YouTube description. Those tools down there can help you as well, because when you search a school on College Scorecard, it tells you if this school is a Spanish serving institution, predominantly Black institution, Asian specific, or Asian and Pacific Islander. It goes into all of that. And so, or it tells you if this school is heavily of a certain church. It goes into all of that. And so it helps with your school choice, because sometimes students don't drop out of school because of money. Sometimes students drop out of school because they didn't feel like they were meant to be there. They felt like it wasn't relatable. They felt outcasted, and so many other things, right? So as I keep going, because I'm still learning and figuring the story out too, guys. So I'm definitely gonna click on that right there. It says Congress created the Hispanic Servant Institution program in the 1990s after finding that Latino students college attendance and graduation rates were lagging. It says an institution can become eligible for extra grants if at least a quarter of its undergraduate student body is Hispanic. As I just said, guys, that's when a school can become a Hispanic servant institution, and it's the same, not the same percentage, but it has to be a certain percentage for each demographic to become this like Hispanic servant institution. Why? Because we have, I want to say, laws in place, definitely policies and laws, and forgive me because policy and laws are probably the same, but I separate them sometimes when they're the same. But we have policies in place that a school, when they meet the Department of Education requirements of having a certain percentage of that group that's needed, they get extra money. That's when I say this is where your school does what they want with the money, but the school should be tailoring this for the students of that demographic. It's going to be more toward them, but it's really for all students as well. But it's going to be more for that demographic. So what can an example be? So in a Hispanic servant institution, realistically, if you have Hispanic students, they might lack instructors that look like them. So this extra money that they get for meeting the Department of Education's quota, like and subscribe, for them meeting this quota, they get the extra money for having a certain amount of Hispanic. They get this extra money for having a certain amount of Hispanic students. So they can bring in now more Hispanic servant. They can bring in more Hispanic instructors to help relate with the students, because the students could possibly be top heavy in speaking bilingual. And so, what's good with you? So students can be heavily speaking bilingual. So they want to bring in bilingual instructors to help break that barrier for students to go to college. And so that is a very underrated, I would say, skill or underrated knowing. Parents, students should know that, because if you feel like your scholar in any demographic is lacking due to professors, they can go to specific schools that are tailored for them. So, and then the school get extra money when they meet that quota. Schools should emphasize that more, but schools don't do that. Schools, I think, feel like it's bad if they do that, because we're gonna get into like that's illegal recruiting apparently. Because right here it says Tennessee challenged the program in June. It says the state joined with Students for Fair Admissions, the same legal group that won the 2023 Supreme Court case that banned race-conscious admissions, to allege that Hispanic Servant Institution program is discriminatory and unconstitutional. Tennessee's institutions missed out on funding opportunities if they do not try to enroll more Hispanic students, but such a recruiting emphasis would be illegal. So I kind of want to look into this lawsuit. This lawsuit might be ridiculously long. Anything with lawsuits, probably like easily 10 pages. Easily 10 pages. Exactly. It's a lawsuit. It's an actual document. It's 16 pages. We ain't gonna do that to ourselves, guys. But I'm gonna read the introduction. I'm gonna read the complaint of it first, and then I'm gonna leave it there, and then we're gonna just go off some things. So it says, in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Tennessee, Knoxville Division, you probably can Google and find this, maybe. It says State of Tennessee and Students for Fair Admissions, Inc. They're the plaintiff, V, which means versus the United States Department of Education, and Linda McMahon in her official capacity as Secretary of Education. So this is a recent document. Holy blink. This is a recent document. I thought it was gonna be an old document. Oh. So the complaint, the Department of Education cannot discriminate based on race or ethnicity, even when Congress orders it, even when Congress orders it to. Yet under the Higher Education Act, the department awards grants to colleges and universities only if they enroll a certain number of Hispanic students. So guys, real quick, this is not illegal, first and foremost. This is very well due practice that, as I said, America was built on this, because America, at least the America we know, understands that it's a certain disadvantages pertaining to demographics. And when a school becomes Hispanic serving institution, PBI, Asian / Islander specific, and many more demographics, that is required. That's embedded in the history of higher education, so that others can get the same and equal opportunity. So that the fact that they got sued, I think the Department of Education said they were doing something illegal. You just gotta. This is where it gets funny. Like, this is why education professionals are laughing at the Department of Education administration, because a lot of stuff they're doing, they're backtracking essentially. They're like literally backtracking, because this is literally part of the history. Like, this is one of the reasons why Jimmy Carter founded the Department of Education. Like, in many, it goes against everything he's been doing. So it says these so-called Hispanic serving institutions are eligible for millions of dollars in federal dollars. Money they can spend on programs ranging from new lab equipment, exactly, to STEM tutoring, exactly, for low-income students. Now, saying that Hispanic serving institutions is dealing with low-income students is wild to use for immediate. Just saying, look, that's another topic for another day. That's crazy to say for low-income students, but lab equipment to STEM tutoring for low-income students. It says, but the Hispanic serving institution program excludes colleges and universities that fall below its arbitrary ethnic threshold of 25% Hispanic. 25% Hispanic. So yes, if your school, but they can't do this, if your school falls short of 24.9%, depending on how that percentage adds up, we're just gonna say 24.8%, and they bump it up to 25% just to get that extra money, that's illegal. They can't do that. But schools get a lot of money, as they said, millions of dollars in federal dollars, millions of federal dollars. This is why I say this is information is knowledge is power. Information is good. It helps you make money, because if you go to a school that's tailored to your demographic per se, you never know. They might use some of that millions of dollars to help you get a scholarship for being an Hispanic student. So that can help you go to school. Like, let's say you get your 2-year degree, right? And then once you get your 2-year degree, you might consider going to a 4-year that is specifically tailored to you. So if you go to that school and they're saying, oh, first, they might not say it, but they might say, well, our first 50 students that come here, they're going to get some extra money out of this, this money they got from the federal government. So there's a court case apparently going on with Tennessee. I think I've seen something about this a little bit before. And so it's interesting to see. And so as we keep going, let's keep going. No, we ain't got a comment. We got a comment. Appreciate that from Big Bro. Let's keep going. Where is it? The Department of Justice won't defend the case. So it said in a letter late last month to the House of Speaker Mike Johnson that the Washington Free Beacon, I believe Beacon, not Bacon, Beacon, first reported on last week. It says the government lacks any legitimate interest in differentiating among universities based on whether a specified number of seats in each class are occupied by individuals from the preferred ethnic group. It says, wrote Solicitor General John Sawyer, Sauer, Y'all let me know in the chat. It says, under those principles, the challenge provisions 25% racial quota violates the Constitution. I don't know, man. That's literally, unless they took the law out, I don't know how, because it's literally part of the Department of Education law. It's funny because we just learned about it in school, in graduate school. Just learned about it. not just learned about it. I learned about it probably when I first started graduate school. It's one of the first things I learned. And so it's actually why some institutions get those big, like I said, they get big money, man. Like these are millions of dollars. This not even including like research money. So every time I say this, guys, remember, I tell you, we think higher education doesn't make money. They make money. Like, it's probably one of the most lucrative fields out there. Consistent lucrative fields, like money print loan. But one day people will catch on, man. This is why I say get your degree. Get your degree. Because for one, don't nobody print more money than the government. So you might as well get a government job, FYI. So don't fall for that social media YouTube bull crap. It's the reason why they kicked me off Instagram. It's the reason why. So hundreds of millions of dollars are not in question. The education department is evaluating its 3 Hispanic serving grant programs. Once again, hundreds of millions of dollars are not in question. The education department is evaluating its 3 Hispanic serving institution grant programs, according to the Washington Post. Hey, Washington Post. Let's see. Washington Post be trying to charge me sometimes. I ain't paying for that. They don't specialize in higher education. So I'm gonna finish reading it. It says a spokesperson wouldn't say whether funding would be paused this year. It says this is going to lead to a big shakeup. Peter Lake, a law professor and director of the Center for Excellence in Higher Education Law and Policy at Sexton University. And Sexton University, I believe that's the team that went on Sexton University. Ain't that the team that went on the March Madness run in basketball? Guys, I know my colleges because of college basketball and sports. Like, nah, this is a different Sexton University. All right, now that's another school I was thinking of. I was thinking of Seton Hall. But Sexton University is a private university in DeLane, Florida. It was established in 1883 as DeLane Academy. It was later renamed John B. Sexton University in honor of John B. Sexton. Who is John B. Sexton? Let's look up John B. Sexton. If you got a school named after you, you either got a lot of money or you did something really big. And it's wrong for us not to know who John B. Sexton is. Or it's ignorant of me not to know. So John Sebastian. What? How? Uh-oh. The internet don't want us to know who John B. Sexton is. I'm kind of curious now. You messed up now. Guys, we cooking tonight. Oh, okay. So, hey, if y'all in the chat, don't get mad, but I'm gonna just say this. John B. Sexton is an American entrepreneur, born May 5th, 1830, died 1906 in DeLane, Florida. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all leave the comments to y'all. All I'm gonna say is, shoot. So John B. Sexton was an American hat maker. Okay, American hat maker who invented the cowboy hat in the 1860s. He founded the John B. Sexton Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in 1865, and it became one of the largest hat manufacturers in the world. The company hats are now commonly referred to as simply as Sextons. Wait a minute. Hold up, Sextons. Let me see some. Okay. Yeah, very popular. They're very popular. Oh, wow. Interesting. I ain't even gonna venture off into the business side. Interesting. We're gonna stay on topic. All right. I wanted to see what their school was. Now they trying to make me do that. See? That's why I read what I read before y'all did that. Excuse me. All right. As we keep cooking, it said right here that oh yeah, because I was talking about Sexton University and I was talking about the professor who is a higher education law and policy at Sexton University in Florida. It said it is a very clear signal to Hispanic serving institutions that their qualification for federal funding, as they understood it is at least in jeopardy. So, what is going to happen if you take away the federal funding of Hispanic serving institutions? Personally, I really don't know. I don't know how much. It depends on the school. I don't know how much the school depends on this Hispanic serving institution money. I don't think the school will shut down. I think the school will have to cut programs. So, it might be some programs for extra tutors. They might have to cut tutors. They might have to cut certain professors that were specialized part of this grant. They're going to start cutting programs that specifically are tailored for Hispanic serving institution, Hispanic serving students, and many more. That's the effects of when you cut millions of dollars of federal funding, and that has been consistently getting that money. Like some of these schools probably been getting that money for a decade, if not, depending on when this was put in place. But I'm pretty sure it's been in place for a while, and I can simply Google that because I know how to ask the question. So if I say, when was Hispanic serving introduced? Y'all know y'all getting a little bit of my Google skills. Yeah, recently, more than a decade. It said Hispanic serving institutions. I knew it was about the 90s. It wasn't something that had been in place since the 1950s or nothing like that. This became into place. Hispanic serving institutions were officially introduced in 1992 with the Higher Education Act. Exactly. The Higher Education Act, which is weird because of high. The Higher Education Act is a later updated version because you got the Higher Education Act of 1965, and then I believe they re-updated the Higher Education Act. I believe. Don't get me started on that, guys, because you're supposed to update the Higher Education Act like every 7 years or something. It stopped at 08 when the 08 crisis happened. FYI, I'm gonna let y'all think about that. So with the Higher Education Act, though the groundwork was laid by congregational hearings in the 1980s and earlier eligibility in 1986 for Title III funding, federal appropriations for Hispanic serving institutions began in 1995, and the program was later moved to its own title, known as Title V. That looks like V. V is Title V, I believe. They be putting these Roman numerals. Even though I'm the third guy, I still get these Roman numerals confused. 5 and Roman. Yeah, number 5. So Title V. Yeah. So the program was later moved to its own title, Title V, in the 1998 Higher Education Amendments. And the Hispanic serving institution is an Hispanic serving institution is a not-for-profit higher education institution where at least 25% of the full-time equivalent undergraduate student enrollment is Hispanic. Once again, key, easy, not gonna lie, AI overview got this right a little bit. Should lead to credible sources with AI overview. It should lead to credible sources. If not, you can find it on the Department of Education. You should be able to find it on the Department of Education. And so it's important. So let's keep going. Where we was, guys, right here. So, boop, 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 boop. We were further down than this. Yeah. So, remember what happened in Texas? I don't remember what happened in Texas. Per Chronicles of Higher Education. The Trump administration's legal positioning resembles a court case that ended in state tuition for, oh yeah, I do remember that. So in Texas, guys, they said if you are an undocumented student, you cannot get in-state tuition. Yeah, that happened recently. Recently. I don't know anybody in Texas who particularly was affected by that. But it would be interesting to hear about that. Giving me another idea. So the Trump administration legal position resembles a court case that ended in-state tuition for undocumented students in the Lone Star State. In that case, the Justice Department challenged a state statute that allowed undocumented students to pay the lower rates. The Texas Attorney General did not offer a defense, and a judge quickly struck down the law. So, yeah. And let's go to the Texas Turban. Is it Turban? Turban? I'm not really focused on pronouncing this. Trying to get to this. So within hours of a federal lawsuit targeting Texas policy of letting undocumented students qualify for lower public tuition rates, the 24-year-old law was no more. Yeah. So it's no more. Exactly. I just want to make sure, because sometimes they write these articles, they make it confusing, guys. So yeah, they put it in. Texas ended the 24-year-old law, and it came hours after the U.S. Department of Justice announced it was suing Texas over its policy of letting undocumented students qualify for lower tuition rates at public universities. So if you are an undocumented student, I don't think this goes strictly for Latinos, but in Texas, it's heavily Hispanic demographic. So that's what they're meaning. But if you are an undocumented student, period, in Texas, you're now paying out of state cost to go to college. They said university, public universities, but I believe it's for all colleges. But right now, as we know, it's public universities. So, as you know, if I talk about on the channel, guys, if you go to school out of state, so you could be literally in state, and if you're undocumented and you're trying to go to college, you're about to be paying like at least 5x the prices to go to school now. Like, you're about to be paying a buckload of price. Like, instead of you paying like $5,000 for the year, now you could be potentially paying $15 for the year or $20,000 for the year. So, something to think about. And so, we talked about that before on the live stream, but if y'all want to talk about that some more, let me know. We can come back to that and get into that. But I don't really want to dive on that because we talked about it. So right here it said, it's not just Hispanic serving institutions that have to wonder about their funding. Other programs for predominantly Black institutions and Asian American institutions and Native American institutions and Pacific Islander serving institutions. These are the institutions I was just talking about, guys. Make awards based on the racial composition of institution students. The education department spokesperson wouldn't say whether other race-conscious grant funding is being evaluated, the Post reported. This is why I say go to a two-year college. If they're going to take away grants, because, guys, anytime you take away money from a school, some of these schools run this to where, look, we might not raise your tuition prices, we might not raise your fees, we might not raise nothing. We might keep your prices stand still because we understand the demographic of our students. So if you are a person that takes pride in your demographic, right, heavily, like you feel like I need to be around people that look like me all the time, but you don't care about the price, you should care about the price now. This is the reason why I say you should start at a two-year college. Two-year college prices are not moving the needle like public universities. Context: public universities are doing normal things at this point, but not doing strategically good with their money. Two-year colleges enrollments are blustering. And they're not blustering solely because the media is telling you they're blustering because, oh, you can go get a trade. They're blustering because students are taking these credits. They're getting their gen ed credits and they're transferring to a university. Like going to a 2-year, you don't even, in some states, you don't even have to worry about taking the SAT, ACT, or placement test, really. You can just go to the school, and get your same gen ed, which is your psychology, math, science, and many more. Get those and transfer to the university, be strictly in your program. Done. As I tell people, I only paid $1,500. I only paid about $3,000. I paid about $6,000. If you include summer, I probably paid about $8,000. 8 to 10, if you want to speculate, because I did a trade first. I paid about $8 to $10,000 to get those 2 associate degrees. It's powerful, guys. Then they have this thing called articulation agreements. It's powerful. Raising my arms a little bit from the gym. It's powerful. It's powerful. So, with that being said, in all matrimony is what they say, or in all be all, whatever. They say the Chronicle Higher Education says the bigger picture. The education department told the Daily Briefing, that's it, the name. But the education department told Chronicles of Higher Education that the Trump administration strongly supports HBCUs and minority serving institutions. It didn't respond to the request for comment on Monday. That's where they left it at. That's where they left it at. Which leads us to George Mason University. Hey, I ain't never went to George Mason University, but man, hey, I heard George Mason University got some stuff going on. I've been seeing this. I'm not even gonna hold you guys. I've been seeing the stuff at George Mason University. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even want to get into it because they've been going at it. So apparently, the George Mason University president won't apologize. Gregory Washington's lawyer, so I believe that's the president at George Mason University. And if anybody can fill me in on the story, that would be lovely. But I'm gonna look through it real quick. I'm not fully aware of this. Yeah. Gregory Washington, he's an engineer, but he's also Gregory N. Washington is an American university professor and an academic administrator who became the 8th president of George Mason University on July 1st, 2020. So he came in during the pandemic year. So he has been going at it with, I want to say Trump. Like, yeah, the Trump administration. He's been going at it with the Trump administration. I wonder how he popped up on their radar. That's interesting. Because George Mason University is not that much of a big school. So Gregory Washington's lawyer told the public university's board that apologizing for illegal discriminatory hiring practices would be falsely admitting to conduct that did not occur. That's literally how they said it. Would be falsely admitting to conduct that did not occur. All right, conduct, not sorry, something else, but would not be falsely admitting to conduct, which means like they didn't do this. They did not do any of this conduct. They're saying this conduct did not occur. Ooh, that was hard to get that out. I don't know why he said it like that. I quote, by the way, that was in quotations, and would expose the institution to future federal investigations. The Trump administration last week demanded Washington issue such an apology to settle its finding that George Mason violated the Civil Rights Act. Washington's lawyer alleged that the federal investigation reached a conclusion despite a very incomplete fact-finding process, including only 2 interviews with university academic deans. So, yeah, we don't know much on this story. Per Chronicle, we don't know much. It said George Mason University president refuses to apologize for diversity efforts. Lawyer calls education department claims absurd. So we read a little bit. So Gregory Washington, George Mason's University first black president, will not be apologizing over diversity initiatives he's pursued since his hiring in 2020. According to a 10-page letter delivered to the university's Board of Visitors on Monday, the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights last week concluded that Washington and the university engaged in an unlawful race-based hiring and violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. As part of a proposed resolution agreement, the Office for Civil Rights demanded that Washington personally apologize to the university commitment. Washington personally apologized to the university committee over diversity efforts he oversaw and supported. But, okay. But the lawyer said that is not going to happen. His lawyer, Douglas F. Gansler, made clear in Monday's letter, which was obtained by the Chronicle. I want to say, guys, real quick, that sounds like the school has not fired the president. Gregory Washington. So it seems like the school is on his side as well. I wonder what's gonna be the consequences of the school, because he said he's not going to apologize. So I guess the school not gonna have no consequences. You never know. It might just fall off, and they might not worry about it no more. But right here, I quote the lawyer, Douglas F. Gansler. It is glaringly apparent that the OCR investigation process has been cut short, and findings have been made in spite of have been made in spite of a very incomplete fact-finding process, including only 2 interviews with university academic deans. Gansler wrote, Gansler is a former attorney general of Maryland who defends clients facing government investigation. The letter accused the government of making gross mischaracterizations of statements made by Washington about efforts to create a more welcoming climate and racially balanced faculty at the state's most racially diverse public university. For Office Civil Rights to single out for the Office of Civil Rights to single out George Mason University for alleged discriminatory conduct when it admits more than 90% of its student applicants, has no record of selectively denying faculty opportunities, and in fact boasts a faculty community nationally respected for its viewpoint diversity. Borders on the absurd, Gansler wrote. So George Mason's Board of Visitors did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So the letter from Gansler also emphasized that Washington was not directly involved in the evaluation of faculty candidates. Office of Civil Rights last week gave George Mason leaders 10 days to agree to revise policies, train employees annually, and assign someone to ensure compliance. A proposed resolution agreement it's resolution. It's got to be resolution. The way they flowed it got to be resolution. Hold on, Gregory Washington. We coming back. My dog. We coming back.
Resolution.
Yeah, I got it. Resolution. I be making sure, guys. Sometimes they be writing sentences, they don't know how to use them. A proposed resolution agreement would require the university to review its hiring process and policies to remove any provisions that require or encourage the use of race to favor or disfavor any candidate. See, I don't know. With all this going on, they're saying there's no proof. The Office of Civil Rights could be coming at GMU, which is George Mason University. This is interesting. I don't know. I really don't know, guys. This is interesting. This is interesting. They did point them out, though, man. And so, yeah, they got 10 days. It says right here, Washington apologizing to the Mason community for promoting unlawful discriminatory hiring practices would be falsely admitting to conduct that did not occur and will open GMU to further legal risks and concurrent and future investigations by other agencies, letter stated. So it says James H. Finkelstein, a professor of public policy at George Mason, had also strongly urged the president not to apologize. What the government is really wanting to do is to humiliate the president, and not only that, but expose him and the university to future legal action, not only by the government, but also potentially thousands of people who have applied for positions at George Mason since 2020. It says Finkelstein said If a white male applicant was passed over for a position that went to a minority or female candidate, would they have a claim? It says that is the kind of legal dilemma that puts the president, Finkelstein said, in an untenable position. Huh. This is interesting. So it's about pretty much hiring minorities over white counterparts, and they've been going at this for weeks. Like, this has been going on since. Can I zoom in on this? This would give me an idea. Nah, this ain't telling us when it first started. Yeah, this goes back to April, guys. Hold on right quick. This goes back to April. Like, it's August now. Like, this has been going on about George Mason University. The president said he's not going to apologize. So, in conclusion, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with George Mason University. What's going to happen with the president? What's going to happen with the school? Are they going to get their funding taken away? I don't know. Is anything going to happen? It's something that we got to keep an eye on. But I wasn't following it because I knew nothing really was hitting. They're throwing punches. But right now, it's common higher ed things, which is a big deal because a president usually, they are more likely going to get ousted due to politics. Usually university presidents or presidents in general are not ousted because of their not doing their job sometimes. It's just because of politics, which is not fair in some cases. I feel like it should be politically free, but we have not reached that point as a society yet, personally. So let's keep going because I believe we already hit our marker. I believe, yeah, we had 1:12, guys. I would love to keep going. What I am going to do, I'm going to pull some more stories from this because they got some great stories in here. So I'm going to pull some more stories that we could talk about on Thursday because your boy got to do some schoolwork, or do some reading. So, yes. So we're going to do our college breakdown. Let's do George Mason University. I know we spoke on a lot of other colleges, but let's do George Mason University since they're going through so much. I believe turbulence would be a good word. Let me look up the word turbulence. Yeah, since George Mason is going through turbulence, is like turmoil, conflict, troubles, I used a good word, yeah. So, yeah. So we're gonna look at George Mason. I don't think I did a review on George Mason University, so that's pretty good. Let's see. Cool. And then we'll look them up on here. So George Mason University, guys, real quick, just some quick context on the school while it loads up. George Mason University has always been more about where we are going. Well, that's something else. That's to summarize. But George Mason University is in Virginia. They don't look that expensive right now. They have, as of 2024, this is based on Google, but we're going to see on the College Scorecard. They enrolled about 40,000 students, estimate. They're in a large suburb area. They got some acres. Some colleges got them acres, but they got almost 1,000 acres. And so, actually, they do got more than 1,000 acres. They got other acres on different campuses. They have a total of almost 1,200 acres. Hey, man, got to pay attention. And so, some of the notable alumni, I'm not even going to lie, I cannot pronounce these names, but they got some very, for sure, noble alumni. Interesting. They're actually considered R1 school. Is a top 50 public R1 research university. Interesting. All right, so let's get into it. Oh, and I guess the school is named after. So let's do a little history real quick. George Mason can refer to the founding father, George Mason, in an influential yet sometimes unaccredited contributor to the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights. And also George Mason University, a public research university in Virginia known for its innovation and affordability. So who is George Mason University named after? You got me wondering. You got me wondering what was this school named after? Oh, it's named after George Mason, the person we just said. A founding father of the United States, a Virginia planter and politician, and the principal author of the Virginia Declaration of Rights. The university honors him for his significant influence on American political thought, particularly his foundational ideas for the U.S. Bill of Rights. Interesting. He's one of the founding fathers. So then you make you think, for my people out there who don't know, right there, do a little history. I'm going to say, as I set this up again, who are yeah, that's them right there. George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, Anderson Hamilton. These guys, I believe the founders used to read books. Whoever. Real quick. It says, yes, many of the founding fathers spent a significant amount of time reading. Yeah, the founding fathers. They said with figures like Thomas Jefferson being a noted biblical maniac, and Benjamin Franklin prioritizing reading and self-education. They read works by Enlightenment thinkers such as John Locke and, oh, I can't pronounce that word. I'm going to put that in the chat for y'all when y'all play this back. I'm going to put that in the chat. Put that in the chat for y'all. But that word right there. Not even going to try that one. As well as ancient classical writers, the Bible, Shakespeare, and other contemporary literature to gain knowledge and inspiration for creating the new nation. And it goes more and more and more, but these guys were reader guys. Like I said, these are founding fathers. But more of all, importantly, it's one of the reasons why we have the education, literature, enlightenment, English literature, and so on, and political philosophy. And so if you study like the founding fathers, to me, if you study the founding fathers literature, not the people, I don't study the people, I study the literature and how America was built, and you understand how America was written and built, it helps you succeed in life. Because when you understand what succeeds in this world, it makes it easier for you to just be like, okay, I get how things work, and I'm gonna leave it there. That's more for interviews when I get interviewed. So definitely go look into that though. I feel like I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole since I'm in school. Might end up writing about it a little bit. So George Mason University, they say here on the College Scorecard, they have about 27,000 undergraduates. It's a special destination for Asian American and Native American, Asian Americans, Native Americans, and Pacific Islander serving institutions. Interesting. But George Mason University has a graduation rate of 75%. That's pretty good on a 100% scale. The average annual cost to go here is $18,000. It's about $18,300. That's below the 4-year midpoint, which is almost $20,000. So I'm going to no. I did not set that up. George Mason University. As I do that real quick. Hurry. All right. Boop, 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 boop. So, let's see. All right, guys. It's saying that the tuition and fees, the 2025-2026 cost of attendance at George Mason University, the undergraduate, like I said, tuition and fees, in-state full-time per year, you're looking at $14,000. $14,000. Undergraduate tuition, it says undergraduate estimated tuition costs are based on full-time status of 12 to 15 credits per semester. So I'm assuming when it said 25 to 2026 cost of attendance, so I'm assuming I have to divide that by 2 because that's for the year. So with my calculator, come on calculator. So we're gonna just do 14. It's an estimate, so I'm gonna just do 14,500 divided by 2. So you're looking at about $7 grand. You're looking at about $7,250 for your fall and spring semester. And so that doesn't include though, guys, you staying on campus. Remember, always throwing an extra like meal plan of on the low end 2,000, on the low end for room and board 2,000, and then that bumps your $7,000 per semester up to what, 9,000, and then 11,000 per semester, which would be what, about 22 to 23,000 for the full year. So the college scorecard is kind of close, but it's under on the college scorecard. I guess they're factoring in if you get financial aid, but personally, if you get financial aid, guys, it's going to burn your financial aid pretty quick. So they say earnings. They say potentially earn it after you go to school here at George Mason University. They say you could potentially earn $77,000 a year after being 10 years removed from the institution. You should be about at 77,000 or under 77,000, but you should be at it or over it. You know, that's pretty good. That's higher than the 4-year college midpoint, which is 54,000. That's pretty good. But if we factor in your potential, like just on the end of the 14,000, you know, we're just gonna use the tuition and fees. I'm not even gonna use the estimate of throwing in meal plans or room and board, because they said for the year you're looking at pretty much 14,500. 14,500, because it says estimate anyway. So 14,500 with tuition and fees alone, you're looking at $58,000 for the year if you stay off campus. That's not bad, I guess, if you're going to make potentially $77,000. Not bad. Not bad. But let's keep going. And it seems like a pretty good institution, but I don't really know what they're known for. So, okay, graduation and retention rate. We said graduation rate is 75%. Students return 86% of the time after their first year. That is really good. That's pretty good. That's a B. Financial aid and debt. So the average student will have about $20,000 after attending George Mason University. That's the average debt you're going to come out with, minimum. That's what they're saying. That's what they're predicting. 36% of students receive federal loans. 36% of students receive federal loans. That's almost 40%. Not half, but almost 40. Typical earnings. And we talked about the earnings, but you have an 81% chance of making more than a high school graduate if you go to this school. That's a B average. That's pretty good. And test scores and acceptance. So they have an 89%. They did say that. When we was reading the article on College Education, they said they have about a 90% acceptance rate, which means majority of students can get into this institution. But the college scorecard says 89%. It says George Mason University has an acceptance rate of 89%. They say they consider the SAT, ACT during the application process, but do not require them. Why? Because schools need students. Everybody has a decline in enrollment. If you're not a tier 1 institution or Ivy, you probably are struggling to bring in students. So, why do I mention that? Because schools need students and they want you to come. But like, who want to pay 14 grand a year when you can go pay, me personally, when I can go pay 1,500 and then pocket back the rest of the money? You know, like saving up my money. Oh, my school paid for the year? Oh, good. I don't got to pay nothing? Cool. So I could go, hey, you know me, disclaimer, not financial advisor, go buy some stocks, you know, buy some things for me if you want to splurge on yourself a little bit, but make sure you put some aside for next semester, you see. So I'm gonna say George Mason University. They have an 89% acceptance rate. It's pretty high. Don't know if that's good. That means a lot of people can get into the school because they probably, I don't know, mixed reviews on that one. I'm gonna rate George Mason University because I'm basing it on if I would transfer there after being at my 2 year. Would I transfer to this institution? And the answer is no. And I wouldn't even transfer here after coming from my 2 year. I wouldn't even. Of course, I wouldn't transfer here fresh out of college, fresh out of high school, but I would not transfer to George Mason University after leaving my 2 year because it's going to be like $7,000 potentially for one semester. I can find some colleges more affordable and potentially better for cheaper. Now, I don't know what George Mason University is known for. So in that case, I'm going to give them a C. I'm going to give them a C. Yeah, I'll give them a C. I'll ride with that. I was in between the D. I'm going to give them a C. But I'm going to give George Mason University a C. I wouldn't transfer there. No. But they pass, and they have a very good high on return on investment. But I wouldn't transfer there. I wouldn't go there. And it's a school that will be like, it's okay, but you can do a lot better and find a better school that's more affordable and better. Now, I would love for them to come explain to us and tell us. Of course, we might do a little research on it when it comes that time. If they want to come and explain why they're worth the price they're worth. Because if we factor in the meal plans and the room and board, they can come to almost about $100,000 there. Not to mention if you have to retake classes or other things that may occur that make you pay more money at the school. So they are a C, but they could potentially drop to a D or F real quick. But based on the school being, and I also heard that the school is also known for their diversity, helping students thrive, and they're a special destination as well. So they seem to take pride in their diversity. So they get a C. But I would go somewhere else. I wouldn't go here personally. If I was transferring from my 2 year, I wouldn't go here. So yeah, George Mason University. And that's all, guys. I'll see you Thursday. I appreciate everybody. Oh, I won't see you Thursday. I got class Thursday. So what I'm going to try to do, guys, is probably squeeze in. I would try to be on again this week. I would try. I have class Thursday, so I would make sure and do my best to try to get on here. And so I will see you guys soon. If not, I'll just do it on the weekend like I did last time. So bear with me. Graduate school last semester. We can get back to being consistent when it's over. I see you. Peace. Chicken grease. And we ain't got no student loans in graduate school or any level of school. So y'all, hey, yeah. See ya.